This week in games, Netflix Horizon show has been canceled. Nintendo says no to AI. Switch 2 will not be a new platform. And EA says this is going to be the biggest Battlefield yet. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 207. I'm your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Sometimes my throat gets really tired when I talk normally, and it dies in the middle of a sentence. It happens.
It's a problem for podcasting.
But it happens to me more than anybody else.
Oh, does it?
It does.
All right.
I counted.
Sure. Connor, how's your week been, friend?
Yeah.
Great. Really?
No, it is. Yeah, I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
Because you see, there was this natural reaction to say, my week was good, or my week was bad. I don't think people really think about it. They need to feel it, and whatever they're feeling in that moment is what they say.
Uh-huh.
And so rationally, I can say, I had a really good week.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Because I had... Oh, yeah, you did not.
No, I did not.
See, while you had annoying shit going on at your job,
Yeah.
I had 2 days off in a row on my job.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
How's that holiday for you?
Amazing. I loved it.
Sucked for me. But that's beside the point, of course. We don't have to get into all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, of course, the Two Penny Games cast. Me and Connor come to you each week and give you the nerdy news you need to know about concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. Want to jump to a specific topic that needs to be covered? There are time codes in the description. Down there in the description, you may notice a little thing for a review of Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree. That's right, Connor and Phil sat down together and nerded out all things Elden Ring this week, so make sure you stick around for that, or catch the breakout review posted over at youtube.com/@2pennygames. Connor, should they stick around for that review?
Yeah.
Yeah. You should stick around for that
I'm
review.
talking about it, so yeah, I would say yes.
There you go. How's the narrative?
It's great, actually.
It
is great.
Is
this fucking
it?
loser.
You know,
you know what he did? He did this before the DLC was even completed. Before I even got everything, he was doing this tongue-in-cheek thing where I didn't have the perfect response to what he wanted me to say, and so he took that as it doesn't have a good story.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, you can watch us record all of our podcasts live over at twitch.tv/2pennygames. The review has already been recorded by the time we're recording this. You just, you record things in different orders depending on the necessity of the day, right? Connor, I already know you said that you basically said it yourself. You just didn't know that you said it, right? There's no narrative in this shit. And guess what? Fucking told you.
But there's a story. There's a story. And it's better than The Last of Us Part 2. I'm saying it now. I care more about it than this. And I always bring up Last of Us Part 2 because I hate that I always have to hate on it. I always have to. It's not even an aggressive bad thing.
Totally unnecessary.
The storytelling in The Last of Us Part 2 was criticized for being inconsistent and not making sense from a writing perspective. That is untrue. It is untrue.
It's fine.
It's just not
good.
Great.
And it's a basic story. Yeah. But the first game had a basic story,
But was elevated.
And all the Uncharted games have basic stories.
But was elevated
but
with
have
the characters.
They all have phenomenal narratives. And if you don't know the difference between those two words, pick up a dramatic arts book. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. You can catch this podcast every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know down in the comments how you feel about each of today's topics. Make sure you let us know about some topics that maybe you want to hear us talk about and cover for next week's episode for a audience 2 pennies. And make sure you follow us on all of our socials down in the description below. Like, subscribe. Please subscribe once again. And Connor, let's go ahead and jump right into it, my friend. Let's get into our first topic of the day. My first penny of the day, one that's a little tricky. Here we go. Horizon Zero Dawn TV series no longer moving forward at Netflix. This is a report from Adam Bankhurst over at IGN. According to a report on the alleged, quote, toxic, bullying, manipulative, and retaliatory behavior of the Umbrella Academy showrunner Steve Blackman, the Horizon Zero Dawn TV series is seemingly not moving forward at Netflix. As reported by Rolling Stone, 12 staffers and an HR compliant have detailed the hostile workplace that was said to have been fostered by Blackman, although the showrunner has said these claims are, quote, entirely untrue and, quote, completely absurd. At the end of the report, it is stated that Blackman was offered an overall development deal reportedly worth $50 million at Netflix in 2020, and the Horizon Zero Dawn series was part of that package alongside an original outer space thriller series called Orbital. Now, however, Rolling Stone has, quote, learned that the two projects are no longer moving forward. Per a representative for Blackman, the showrunner, quote, has a long, ongoing, and close working relationship with Netflix and, quote, continues to work on new projects. Furthermore, Blackman signed, quote, a new multi-year deal earlier this year. Horizon Netflix series was revealed back in 2022 with Blackman as the showrunner, and it was going to star Aloy. Quote, Horizon Zero Dawn is an exceptionally well-crafted game with wonderful characters not often seen in the rank and file of the gaming world, Blackman said at the time. Excuse me. Quote, Guerrilla Games has created an incredibly lush and vivid world of man and machine who find themselves on a collision course to oblivion. Their salvation comes in the form of a young female warrior named Aloy, who has no idea she's the key to saving the world. Suffice it to say, yes, Aloy will be a main character in our story. My writing partner on this, Michelle Lavretta, and I are thrilled to be able to expand this remarkable IP into a series for all types of viewers. Sony said back in January 2024, the writing had begun on the series, but we haven't really learned anything else since. Connor? Well, that's unfortunate.
Not really.
No, that's unfortunate. You know, that's money not being made. That's a creation no longer being worked on. Then that's an opportunity for creatives that, you know, is now no longer there. That's unfortunate. Now, the upside is it sounds like this guy Blackman, not a great guy, and so probably should be, you know, removed from the project. Netflix probably had something in ink that only he could work on the project. Under Netflix, I do believe we will still get a Horizon adaptation of at some point featuring Aloy, probably just not with Netflix now. But I'm sure Sony will shop around the IP and figure out another place to put it.
And when you ask me it's not a big deal, and it's not, it is from that perspective. It clearly was all tied up in him. And hey, if you're a piece of shit, you know, in some cases, legal recourse should happen, but that's not always warranted. And so sometimes if you're a creative and you're using that position as the head creative to abuse people under you, maybe it's deserved that it falls out of your control at the very least.
Sure.
It's as you said, though. I feel like if they had dedicated themselves to making a Horizon show of some sort, they wouldn't just abandon that if the idea really sounded good to them.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there is the possibility that it could have been canceled for that reason, but also just because they wanted an out and they got it in the form of those complaints and they just took it. That's less likely, but it's a possibility.
That's a lot. It's a lot of money on the table for these things. You know, I doubt Netflix who is currently looking for premier content to remain competitive in this climate with all the streaming wars and stuff going on with all the different platforms and so forth. I'm sure they're looking for, you know, an already established IP that will garner eyes on them. I mean, you look at like Twisted Metal. All reports, not the best show in the world, but also not the worst show in the world either. Getting a season 2 on Peacock. You know?
I heard it was good.
So, you know, I'm sure a more established IP with a more beloved narrative, with a more beloved character than Sweet Tooth. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm sure Netflix was excited for the eyes that was going to bring, and now unfortunately that's not going to happen. Probably going to be another who knows how long until we see some sort of adaptation like this. Sony pen a new contract with a new company, and then, you know, it's production starting over. You can't use any of those scripts. You can't use any of that pre-production work, you know, at all, because I'm sure it's all locked down through copyright and stuff like that. So, you know, it's going to basically need a reboot entirely. So even if Sony pens a deal by the end of this year, it's going to be another 2-3 years at least before we see anything from it. Of course, the world of Horizon is a very heavy special effects requirement of a show. So, you know, these things take time.
And that's what's so weird about it, though, because you wouldn't think they'd want to go through all that trouble again because of some complaints that were leveled against one guy who's at the head of it.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining because more often than not, I'd rather have that happen than not. In my job, for example, I'm a vendor. The store that I work at has to take care of our stuff, and sometimes they can, overcorrect when they're trying to do this thing. But from my employer's perspective, it's okay because, it's better that than having to, deal with a bunch of problems from the opposite side of things. I'm trying to go as much as I can without saying what my job is. But from this perspective, I wouldn't think that they'd want to go through the trouble just because of complaints. They'd just rather tank it and deal with it, because I feel like there wouldn't be many
of releasing that show and releasing things so that Netflix could continue that. Yeah. It's a headache for all parties involved. It's going to delay the project. The project is then going to have a bit of a stain on it. If it, I imagine these things against Blackman are pretty bad.
That was my next point. Is like they have to have at least something like pretty horrible.
Yeah, he's probably a really bad guy if they're just fully canceling it all the way.
Yeah.
So like on some like. Dr. Disrespect being banned from Twitch level thing, years ago. And, they're going to want to keep it wrapped up and just settle everything behind the scenes. But it sounds like something really bad is going on over there. So we're getting rid of this guy and we're moving platforms here. Unfortunate, I would have been interested to see what that looks like. And so now we're left, Sony, of course, continuing to sort of cultivate more adaptations of their PlayStation IPs and so forth. So, we still have God of War through Amazon. We still have Last of Us through HBO. And we're going to get more and more through these Twisted Metal through Peacock,
Arcane Season 2 coming out this year?
Not a PlayStation thing, but yeah.
Oh. I didn't hear the PlayStation part.
Yeah, it was, the kind of the whole reason why I mentioned it, but that's fine. And there's something else cooking under the hood that I'm just blanking on right now. So, we're getting more PlayStation adaptations. They're coming. They're going to continue to keep coming.
Ghost of Tsushima, wasn't it?
Yes. Ghost movie. That's it. Ghost of Tsushima movie coming. And I like that PlayStation is trying to do it the smart way and figure out what is the best medium, what is the best format, what is the best creative partner for each of these IPs. And so, I have no doubt that they'll figure something out with Horizon. Probably going to go, if I were to imagine, probably going to go to a Disney or something like that, because, Horizon, not exactly for kids, but, not mature, so like you're not, God of War, you're tearing people apart and, sex is a theme of God of War and so forth. So like, you can't market that to everybody. We said this when the Lego Horizon game got marketed as well. It's like young kids can play the Horizon game. They probably won't just because it's a little more complex and heavy duty of a game. But there is an in through that. So I could see, a cool action series, on the level of like a Star Wars going to Disney via Horizon.
Okay. I was going to look and see if Lego made Disney. I mean, if Lego is owned by Disney, which would kind of make sense that they would take it because they do the Lego game and they might try to just go all in with the IP. But yeah, I mean, we're in the period now. We remember it very well when video game adaptations were not good.
Oh yeah,
you could just basically say out the gate that's going to suck. And Sony,
I don't think you can say that anymore.
No, you can't.
I honestly, we're at a point. I don't even think it's worth bringing up anymore.
No, it's not a matter of like. It's definitely not to the point where you say like this is going to be good because it's a video game adaptation of a thing I like. But it is now where you're like it can go either way, just like any other film out there.
That literally, anything else. It's like, well, this is either going to be good or okay or like it can explore the range because we've explored the range. We've had projects that are awesome and we've had projects that are still stinkers even to this day.
Yeah. Looking at you, Blood Rain.
Huh?
Blood Rain, the vampire game. It's like you're a vampire killer. I found out about the game because it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I remember watching it even as a kid, just being like, "What the hell's going on?" So, come a long way.
Okay, no idea what that is. Yeah. You like your niche stuff, buddy. You like.
I don't like it though.
I mean, clearly you do. You're fucking.
I just remember. I remember because it's so bad. There's those moments when you're a kid. When you play a bad video game or watch a bad movie or watch a bad TV show, and even though you're at a point where you don't really know what is good and bad, you can still kind of go,
something weird.
Something
this
bad.
Is weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You start asking questions and then you look back and you go, asking those questions for a reason.
Yeah.
You know? So that's funny. Moving on to topic number 2, Connor, and your first penny of the day. A very important topic of discussion, and I'm excited to talk about it here. So go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Yes. I'm happy. Sometimes we cover things and it's not happy, but this is happy. Games Radar. This is from Hiran Cryer. Nintendo says it doesn't need generative AI to make games because it has, quote, decades of know-how and doesn't want any issues with intellectual property rights.
Bars!
Right? Damn, badass. Nintendo's president has shied away from using generative AI for game development, in part because it risks, quote, issues with intellectual property rights. End quote. Speaking during a Nintendo shareholder Q&A earlier this week via Tweaktown, the company president, Shuntaro Furukawa, was asked about utilizing AI in game development. Quote, in the game industry, AI-like technology has long been used to control enemy character movements. So game development and AI technology have always been closely related, Furukawa began. Generative AI, which has been a hot topic in recent years, can be more creative, but we also recognize that it has issues with intellectual property rights. The Nintendo president continued, we have decades of know-how in creating optimal gaming experiences for our technological developments. We hope to continue to deliver value that is unique to us and cannot be achieved through technology alone. End quote. This actually sounds remarkably similar to Sony's recent stance on generative AI on topics like game development and human creation. Speaking during a presentation last month, Sony CEO Kenichiro Yoshida acknowledged that although AI, quote, has been used for creation, it is not a substitute for human creativity. Yoshida added that Sony positions AI as a technology that supports creativity. Support is the key word. Yeah. Support, not replacing, not replacing, just helping things go along a bit smoother. And Nintendo, not only on this front, but also on the realm of how they treat their workers, always are ahead of the curve, at least in comparison to Western devs. In fact, I would go so far as to say Japanese devs in general kind of have a better sense of doing this kind of stuff. Less so with AI, since it's still emerging, but in treating their workers, you don't really hear massive amounts of layoffs that occur out there.
It depends.
I don't think it really depends. I think it's very, leans in the direction of Western game devs doing it a lot more. And it seems like there's inherently more greed that motivates things rather than some of these companies over it.
I think it depends. You know, you look at if you take in on this point specifically, this is not the direction I thought you were going to go, but this is on this point specifically. You look at Square Enix, you look at Capcom, you look at Nintendo, you look at Konami, you look at FromSoft. You just go down the list and you go, all right, well, not all of these companies are great. Not
great. I'm just saying better. They don't have the same level of problems that some other studios do.
I don't think it's. I don't think it's different enough to compare in any meaningful way.
I think it's pretty substantial, especially when we talk about.
I think Nintendo just leads the. I think Nintendo just leads the pack, and so someone's always going to lead the pack, and it just happens to be the one who's been doing it the longest, and arguably the best.
Yeah.
Despite some shortcomings and so forth, but Square Enix laid off a bunch of people and is shortening up their scopes and stuff. Capcom's on a rise right now, but Capcom has had a lot of trouble in the past. Konami obviously has had a lot of trouble in the past, and Crunch still thrives throughout that entire Japanese culture.
Error in communication.
Yeah.
My stress wasn't on how they treat their workers in terms of the day-to-day, operations, because yes, overworking in general is just an issue in a lot of these other Eastern Asian countries like Korea and Japan. I'm more talking in terms of laying off people, in terms of cutting their wages. Those kinds of things you see more of over in the West rather than over in more of these, Asian-focused games.
Yeah, yes. Again, I think that's because Nintendo is the premier Japanese developer or publisher.
Both, really.
Parent company. And they are just leading the pack in that. But you put someone who isn't the people in charge right now, then you'll see a similar problem crop up there. I did see a report recently. I feel like we talked about it on the show, but maybe we didn't. Where Miyamoto, creator of Mario, who is the face of video games, only gets like $1.7 million a year.
Yeah,
and I say only. That's still a lot of money, But in comparison. who was the former head of Activision Blizzard? Bobby Kotick was making that every day, So it's like, oh, okay, clearly, like, all right, yes, our suspicions are correct. Clearly, this is the problem. And if we eliminate that problem and bring it up, and Miyamoto is the second highest earning person at Nintendo. The guy above him, I think, is like 2.2 million or some shit like that. Like, it's really not that much more comparatively. So, like, clearly, it's like, okay, yeah, corporate greed is the problem. Refocusing back to the AI conversation. I love that this seems to be the response from our Sony. Well, I guess PlayStation, Sony Interactive is American-based now, so not exactly apples and oranges, but it's weird because Sony is a Japanese company. Anyways,
weird. It's weird.
Beside that, Nintendo putting the hard no on AI. We don't need it, and it's appreciative. We should praise them for this. Even Sony taking sort of it's just not that great. Like like the human element is just better. And that's true. At some point it may not be true, but AI learns based off of what already exists. So it's impossible for AI to create something from nothing. It's just not a thing that can happen. Humans can do that. Humans can create something from nothing. Now, very often humans create through inspiration, through seeing other things, but AI can only kind of copy and tweak that. Humans can take that and have an entirely new idea because of this thing, and so forth. Because I'm me, Star Wars is the example I go to for that, because George Lucas loved sci-fi and loved the idea of sci-fi, but he grew up on serial, like, Western TV shows and stuff like that. He always thought those things were cool, and then implemented it into a sci-fi idea and birthed an entire idea from that. And AI just can't do that. It can create something that looks new, but in its root form, it isn't new.
Sure, that's absolutely true. It's kind of a hard thing to remember because people do have that perception of AI being a separate intelligence away from humanity, but it's not. At least not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. There's always the possibility that we create Skynet and get screwed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always the possibility. But yeah, so this is great. Love that. Nintendo, I don't even think it's not a debate to even say they make some of the best games in the entire industry. Period. And then you could have a very strong argument to say they make the best games in the industry, and you wouldn't be crazy for saying that.
And once again with the AI, that is true. But another element to this, they mentioned it, of course, is keeping people that know how to make the games from a ground level and allowing them to build on themselves. I think that's an issue with a lot of companies nowadays that lay off people and they don't have a team to make their next big game.
You're forcing creation of new teams, or forcing other teams to do work or figure out the know-how that they're talking about in order to continue this work. The reason Nintendo works is because they try their best to keep their teams.
Yes.
And so they can keep building on this personal experience. They can keep building on this know-how and sharpen skills, make things better, learn from mistakes. If you give an IP or a game to a new team, they're not going to have that. So there's troubleshooting along the way. There's problem solving along the way that a more experienced team that knows how is a well-oiled machine because they've been working together for so long. They know how to work together. All of these things are new.
Yeah, and that I'm in my FromSoft bag recently because it's pervading my mind. You see it almost more, easily in FromSoft games with the development as they've gone from Demon's Souls all the way to Elden Ring. Yeah. They've kept a lot of the same people. And so you see the growth and strength and things they learn in previous games to make better ones. And I think that should be just a general standard practice rather than continuously ditching somebody else, because it's going to, make the company itself more money in the long run because they have people that know what they're doing, and also prevent people from being laid off, which I feel like that's a really solid way to prevent that from happening. Because FromSoft, they have like crunch issues, of course, as we talked at the beginning of the story. Every game company has a problem, but layoffs are not one of them. And that's possibly a reason, they've continued to make great games.
For now.
Yeah.
For now. But it's working. And I can't imagine it suddenly not working. Nintendo is known to make games and then sit on them because they don't have to release them.
Yeah.
And so they can find the perfect timing to do whatever they need to do. Super Mario Wonder, for example, last year was in the tuck for a cool minute. Mr. Einkun in the chat, remember, everybody, you can watch us live over at twitch.tv/TwoPennyGames every Monday afternoon while we record all of our podcasts. As some people say, basically, they're basically all the same games. Dog, no. Have you played a Zelda game? Have you played one recently? They're very different than they used to be. Have you played a Mario game? They've all got a very unique gimmick that make them different, you know?
The only thing is they're Mario games, and you're a sheep by playing Mario games.
All right. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when you're the best in the business, you know?
Yeah.
You know, when you're the Mickey Mouse of video games, you're gonna not like Mickey Mouse? I mean, it's fucking Mickey Mouse, man.
Fair enough.
You know? Fucking Mario.
By the way, I was late seeing your message, Einkun. Everyone, join Twitch. You can see things like telling me to suck his dick. Effectively.
Whoa!
Hey, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying right there. See it?
Where is he saying that?
Why can I have got a Lord Rune you can have, smiley face banana. Not much, see?
I mean, it's kind of a point, you know. I guess you got a point there. All right. That's kind of wild. That was a wild thing to say. That was a wild. All right.
So I didn't expect it. I looked over and I was like, "What's he saying?" He's like, "Oh, it's a sex joke."
Jeez. Yeah. So obviously, Nintendo pretty much a hard no on generative AI. Of course, AI has to be used in this technology, this medium, just because that's just kind of how the basis of the thing works. So they kind of go hand in hand, and they concede to that. But generative AI, the thing that's doing the creating, they're leaving in the hands of the humans, the creators that are doing the work, which I love. And then, you know, of course, they brought up the old Sony thing where they're like, it's not that great. You know, it can't replace hard workers. Listen, there are companies who continually try and use AI to do as much of the work as possible. We talked recently, what was it, an Embracer CEO? Or no, it was an AI corporate head talking about it, but it was related to Embracer because they're partners or whatever.
Yeah. Can't remember her name.
Talking about how we can reduce, you know, unnecessary jobs, XYZ, and it just sounds like a terrible future to be in. It feels like it's on the wrong side of history, and it feels like this talking point will die. Maybe I'm just being an optimist.
But that's the thing, though, because when it comes to emerging technology, people have the tendency to just accept it blindly.
Yeah.
And this is one of those situations where it's so separate from other pieces of technology that you could do legislation against it.
Yeah.
You could be more outspoken and stop it in its tracks, or at least frame it a certain way.
And people are being outspoken. I mean, you look at it not just in video games. You know, I saw I saw a clip from what was it, Jason and the Argonauts or something, I think?
Yes, it was that.
Yeah, where like they used AI to smooth over the cuts between the claymation animated things to like kind of like make it all look like a single shot action sequence, and it was done via use of AI. Now, of course, it will eventually be done better. It's more of like, hey, look at where we could get, but it looked terrible, and everybody's response was, "This is terrible. We would rather just have the original thing that we had."
Takes the soul out of it too.
That too. Yeah. And you just see it. It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel right, you know? And I don't know if AI could ever get to a point where it would feel right.
And, you know, that kind of dour look on AI that some people have, I think is very healthy for this emerging technology, because Nintendo, of course, adding to that allows you to set the limitations, you know, culturally, but also possibly effectively. You are being potentially an optimist because these things, you know, technology keeps on going. The bag's been opened. It's going to implement itself in some way in the gaming industry, and it could go farther down the pipeline to replace more and more and more jobs. But thankfully, with people on the internet, in real life, and companies like Nintendo, the brakes can be pumped a little bit.
The guidelines are being created.
Yeah.
Now we have to, you know, it's a process, it's a headache, it's growing pains, but the guidelines are being created. We are finding where we should limit ourselves and stop ourselves. Now, of course, there's always some intellectual in some lab somewhere going, but what if we went a little further, you know, and their inquisitive minds like can't be tamed. And so, you know, you never know. A switch might get flipped and everything will go to shit one day. But it looks like we are trending in the right direction via actions in the wrong direction. You know what I mean?
No, exactly.
Yeah, people are making the wrong choices, and it's causing us to react to go in the right direction. But, Connor, that's not our only Nintendo news for the week. We've got another story here from Insider Gaming. This is, of course, our third topic of the day, my second penny of the day. Mike Straw from Insider Gaming. Nintendo says new Switch console isn't a brand new platform. When Nintendo officially reveals the Nintendo Switch 2, or whatever it's called later this year, it's not going to be an entirely new type of system. In fact, it's going to be pretty similar, in some ways at least, to the current Nintendo Switch. During Nintendo's annual investors meeting on Tuesday, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa, was asked about the new console. Specifically, he was asked if it was if it was a brand new system or something akin to the original Nintendo Switch. Quote, Switch next model is the appropriate way to describe it, Furukawa said. As far as the next Switch model, more and more details have continued to come out about the system. It's been reported that it will be built primarily with Samsung components, the Joy-Cons will connect differently, and that it will be backwards compatible with current Switch games. It's also expected to be another hybrid console that can support up to 4K resolution when docked. As always, none of the reports on the console have been announced by Nintendo or independently verified by Insider Gaming. For now, take them all with a grain of salt. And I mean, on top of that, there was recent headlines about how how Nintendo is looking to meet demand for Switch 2 or whatever. So they're doing plenty of pre-production, plenty of production into the process of Switch 2, so that when it does come to launch, everybody can have one. You don't have to worry about what are they called? Scalpers. You don't have to worry about people running out of stock or things like that. They're gonna do their absolute best to keep everybody stocked up so that everybody can buy one, because they know it's gonna sell like hotcakes, and it is gonna sell like hotcakes. I think this very much easily means we're just getting a Switch 2.
And you know what? I don't really think they would have been able to do anything if they were to go with a new console that would really knock our socks off the same way the Switch did, for example.
Yeah.
And so more of what we already have is really all we need.
100%. It just needs to be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Same thing, but better. But like, this also means that like Nintendo is catching up to the idea that, hey, maybe we shouldn't recreate everything from the ground up, every console. You look from Wii to Wii U to Switch, that's a different online system for every single one of those. 3DS is a different system from everything else. So it's really hard to transfer all of these things to the next thing, and people want to keep their DRM. They want to keep their libraries. They want it to be an easy transfer from one console to the other, and they want to keep their friends list. They don't want to rebuild their friends list every time, much like how PlayStation and Xbox have been doing it since the 7th generation of consoles. So I think it's good to note that Nintendo is finally here with us in the present day. Hi, welcome, Nintendo. It's pretty easy over here, isn't it? And so, yeah, 4K visuals sounds great. Another hybrid model, perfect. Backwards compatibility, probably. All of these rumors and things. It just sounds like Switch 2 is going to be more Switch, which is exactly what we need, just a little bit better.
Besides, of course, technological upgrades to be able to play new games.
Yeah.
I'm just happy they have the backwards compatibility. It basically was never a question in my mind that they wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
Even though it's not necessarily a confirmed thing. It would have been stupid if they didn't do that.
If this thing about Joy-Cons attaching differently is true, that's a little concerning. I wonder if I can still pair my Joy-Cons to a Nintendo Switch. Because of course they want you to buy new stuff all the time, but they come out with Joy-Cons at such a clip, new Joy-Cons and new Joy-Con designs at such a clip that I assume that means they're selling, because people want to customize their Switches in some way. But the choice to have them connect in a different way sounds like a mistake to me. But granted, at the same time, maybe they've learned from mistakes of the original design of how they click in, for example, and then they're trying to fight stick drift from happening. And then also, I don't know about your Switch, but my Switch, The left one doesn't like really click anymore. Like it just kind of sits on it. And so like if I apply even like a little bit of pressure to it, it just pops right off without me pressing the button to like make it release and so forth. So, it's you know, if that could not happen through this new design, that would be better. And of course, I assume that they're going to change the format of the Joy-Cons, so hopefully they feel and fit in my hands a little bit better. Maybe put a little bit of a, luckily I have it right here, the PlayStation Portal, which is literally just a DualSense with a screen in it. Feels great. I could play this thing for hours and not get hand cramps and stuff like that. So hopefully there's a little bit of that more rounded edge stuff going on in order to just make it feel better. Of course, all of these are hopes and dreams. And Connor, we don't want to step on anybody's hopes and dreams, but and hopefully that isn't what's going to be happening with our next and final topic of the day, your second penny of the day. So let's go ahead and jump over to that, my friend. Take it away.
It's time for these somewhat older first-person shooting multiplayer games to revitalize themselves. First Call of Duty, and now Battlefield. This is an article from Inside Gaming from Mike Straw. EA has largest team ever working on new Battlefield game. EA has more people working on the new Battlefield game than at any point in the franchise's history, according to CEO Andrew Wilson. The statement came during the company's latest quarterly earnings call on Tuesday evening. Quote, "This is the largest Battlefield team in franchise history," he said. "A few weeks ago, I was visiting with the teams, and I couldn't be more excited about what they showed and what we were able to play." In April, EA announced that Motive, the studio behind Star Wars Squadrons and Dead Space Remake, would be moved over to work on the development of Battlefield. The studio is also working on the upcoming Iron Man game. As far as the new Battlefield game, Wilson is happy with the game's progress and is confident about its success when players get their hands on it. Quote, "I've just spent a whole bunch of time with the collective Battlefield team playing what they're building, and it is going to be another tremendous live service," he said. End quote. The next game in the Battlefield series is rumored to be revealed at some point in 2024. Recently, EA confirmed that Season 7 of Battlefield 2042 would be the final season of the game. So, this also comes at the same time when they were deciding to delist Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, and Battlefield Hardline, so you can no longer play that online.
On the old consoles.
On the old consoles, yeah.
If you have it on 4, you can still play it on 4, I believe. But on 3 and 360, well. They're dead in the water.
Side point, but they're doing stuff with the Battlefield IP. I jumped on, I guess jumped on during Bad Company. If you can consider that a Battlefield game.
We were late to the party on that one, but yeah.
But Battlefield 3, I absolutely loved. At the time, I can't remember what Call of Duty came out, but I had played more of the online of Battlefield 3. I liked the semi-realism it gave. It wasn't actually realistic. It just looked like it was more realistic compared to like Call of Duty's. But I was enticed by that kind of stuff. Fun, big, multiplayer battles. People loved it at the time. Same thing with Battlefield 4. It was after that point where they started to lose the sauce. Hardline seemed like a gimmicky game. I can't even remember what came after that. Maybe Battlefield 5.
Battlefield people 1. Liked.
Actually, that was said to be good.
Battlefield 5, no.
Battlefield 2042,
not really. Yeah.
With Battlefield 1, they had some good stuff going on. They also have the World War II one, I believe, or something like that.
Oh, no, Battlefield 1 was World War 1.
Yeah, but I thought they did another one that was World War II. I'm probably confusing it with Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Point is, they have some gas in the engine. They just haven't really been going at full throttle.
It's a little stagnant.
It's very stagnant.
They need to revolutionize the franchise. They need to figure out a way to put some more energy, more oomph into it. And from what Andrew Wilson here says, it seems like they are very confident in this next one going into it. I personally was very, very disappointed to hear that Motive was going to be split up and part of that team was going to go work on Battlefield. Now, of course, if they want to, more power to them. But it felt more like a Motive had a lot of plates spinning in some really cool and creative directions. I, of course, after the Dead Space remake last year, was very, very interested in seeing a Dead Space 2 remake. Obviously not happening. I am curious as to the current progress of the Iron Man game. We've known about that game for a little while now, and it still doesn't feel like they're on the brink of even revealing it to us at any point anytime soon, which is unfortunate. Battlefield feels like it's prime, ready to be revealed either later this year, Game Awards, I would assume, or sometime next year, with maybe a late next year release date, or 2026 at some point. So Battlefield feels more feels closer to release than anything else here, and just having the number of hands on it, the talent behind it, and the money going into it, it sounds like EA is looking for Battlefield to kind of come back in a major way. Not that it ever really went away, but it definitely is well past its prime.
It was if they had kept making it the way they had before, it was only going to go downhill. Yeah. I don't think it was going to get much better. It's, as you said, it's a good thing that they have some confirmed really good talent coming in. I'm sure on Battlefield 2042, good people worked at that game.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that great of a success. It had some technological issues. Who knows if that's because the game developers didn't do the best job they could, or if it was pushed out the gate, as we very, very often see from these big publishers. EA would be one to do that.
Probably the latter.
Yeah.
Probably the latter.
But, I mean, the fact that it's a larger team, which might make up for some of the crunching that could have occurred, that, once again, probably did occur.
Yeah.
And, having just more people to get eyes on the game could complicate it. It could get out of hand with too many people working on it.
Too many cooks.
Yeah, too many cooks. But at the same time, that could be what it needs, especially with that motive element added into it. Because from all accounts, Phil's,
motive
the
makes,
general.
From a technical perspective, motive makes great games.
Yeah.
Whether you're looking at their work on Star Wars Battlefront 2, whether you're looking at Star Wars Squadrons, whether you're looking at the Dead Space remake or anything else, I'm excited for Iron Man just based off of that alone, that resume alone. I'm sure the team of motive that is working on Battlefield is kicking ass at that point. So I do think this will be one of the better running and better performing Battlefields that we've seen in a while. I feel like Battlefield, ever since, I feel like Battlefield has always had issues on the technical side of things, even all the way back to 3, has had a lot of issues. And I remember seeing lots of glitches and glitch compilation videos and stuff about Battlefield 3. And
more stuff going on.
Yeah, and it just seemed to get worse and worse and worse as it kept going. Can you look up real quick while I make this next point? Are they switching to a new engine for this Battlefield, or are they using the same engine? But Andrew Wilson has this quote about a tremendous live service game. It seems like they're going to be leaning really heavily into live service for this new Battlefield. And personally, I kind of feel like that's probably a pretty good idea for Battlefield, is to lean real hard into that. Call of Duty has kind of done that. Though single-player campaigns have always been a part of the Battlefield games, they've never been a beloved part of the Battlefield games. There's a couple of examples of cool stories and people liking the stories or whatever, but it's never been the reason why you're going to a Battlefield game. So, of course, I don't know. I'm speaking out of my ass. I'm hypothesizing about this next one. Is there even going to be a single-player element to the next Battlefield game? If I were to guess, probably not. What do they call it? That's another question I have in my head. Do they go with a subtitle? Do they go with another date? Do they go with, or do they just call it straight up Battlefield?
Battlefield 5.
We already had that one.
Did we?
We literally just talked about it.
Oh yeah, we glossed over that.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't.
Yeah. So does it become Battlefield 6? I don't think so. I don't think it'd be worth going to that titling. But you never know. We'll find out here soon enough. You seeing anything about engines or anything?
Yes, as a matter of fact. It was more, this was related to 2042.
Okay.
They updated it in some way, but it is still the Frostbite engine.
There's always updates. They need to move over to Unreal 4.
Well, it's more than just an update. They're talking about how it was a rebranding, a new look and vision. I'm reading off AI's website right now. Frostbite's EA state-of-the-art multi-platform game engine powering many of our biggest franchises. It was built to explore, evolve, and apply proprietary technology specifically with and for our game studios, demonstrating how the intersection of creativity and technology is driving the blah, blah, blah. We're excited to introduce a new logo, and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of corporate speaking.
But again, this isn't a new engine. It's a heavy update, sure, but it's not a new engine. So really, you're just keeping up. You're not, innovating or anything like that. It's cool. That's cool because Frostbite's still a great engine, but it's a little because I would have rathered them move on to the new Unreal engine or something like that.
That would be nice.
Is Unreal on engine 4 or 5?
What's it?
Unreal engine? Is that on 4 or 5? I can't remember.
Ooh, on
I think
Battlefield?
it's on UE5. Unreal Engine.
Oh, yeah. I think it's on 5.
I think it's on 5.
I think so.
Yeah, UE 5. I remember seeing that. So yeah, I would have liked to see moving over to something like that so that we can really get a performative thing. You know, it's funny. I tweeted about it because somebody. It's always been a conversation with Halo in the modern era, and I don't know why it is. Of how the game looks, the fidelity of its visuals and so forth. Halo Infinite got dinged really hard on that. And I had to sit back and wonder, I was like, since when is Halo the big visual fidelity showcase? Like, it's always been a good-looking game, don't get me wrong, but has it always... I don't remember the original trilogy ever being, like, lauded for how it looked.
Maybe the original, yeah, but I don't think since then... They've really done anything else.
I just never really went that direction. Now, don't get me wrong; those first 3 games, all of the games, pretty much have been really good to look at. Infinite probably being lesser so, but still, a fine looking game. I never thought of Halo as the pinnacle of visual fidelity. Battlefield, however, I do feel that way about, where like we always look at how the dust floats through the air and how the light rays cut through that, and then the different weather effects and like how the dirt gets on the screen and all these things, and how realistic the graphics look. Now, I do feel that way about Battlefield, so I'm curious as to how they manage all of these things, and hopefully Motive kind of puts that nice little polish on it that the franchise needs.
I mean, to that point, maybe they should focus less on that stuff, since once again, technological issues, 2042 specifically, were pretty big at the beginning of its release, and maybe they're just trying with that kind of stuff to do too much, and maybe just your standard visuals should be improved rather than just like dust effects and how dirty your camera gets. Those things are unique to look at sometimes, but I don't know if they're really adding to the experience in a substantial way.
I don't know. It's kind of a hallmark of that franchise. I feel
maybe just not that they get rid of it, but just like not put an emphasis on trying to make that be like a big visual draw of the game.
Of course, all of this we'll have to wait and see and see what they've got up their sleeves with it. But the way they're talking about it now, I don't know if I'm interested enough to play it. I'm not a big Battlefield fan, but it's been a long time since I've played a Battlefield, so I'm open to trying it again. Of course, it just all depends on how they reveal it and the sort of the elevator pitch of the game, and if it captures my attention, and of course if it releases at a time where I'm interested in checking it out. So yeah, we're gonna see all of these things real soon. I predict Game Awards.
That seems most sense.
Yeah, I mean Battlefield's big, but I don't think it's big enough to justify its own personal reveal. I feel like you do want to attach yourself to something where eyes are already on screens. I think Game Awards works for that.
I mean, even Call of Duty did their big Call of Duty bit at the
Xbox Showcase.
Xbox
but
Showcase.
I mean that makes sense because Microsoft just acquired Activision Blizzard. They want to attach these things together. I think that was actually more to help the Xbox brand than it was to help the Call of Duty one. But we have seen Call of Duty at other shows before, but usually not for announcements. Usually Call of Duty announces on its own. It did announce on its own, and then immediately but we already knew it was attached to Xbox when they announced it. It's these marketing things that you got to do. But yeah, like I don't like it's not going to come up at like Tokyo Game Show or something like that. Like that would be weird. And I feel like EA's got a good relationship with Keighley, right? I feel like one of the Jedi games was announced or shown off in some meaningful way at one of his shows.
I think it
might have been both of them. I don't know.
Might have been the second one.
It might have been the second one.
Survivor.
You might be right. I forget. We've watched so many of these goddamn shows. It's hard to keep track of things. So yeah. Connor, you're more of a Battlefield fan than me. How are you feeling about all of these potential things?
Well, as I said before, I loved Battlefield 3. Yeah. I was the person who was repping that game over Call of Duty at the time. I still stand by that. I had more fun with it in general than whatever Call of Duty released that year. The memory stuck with me more. And
Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Wait, really? 3? Oh, yeah. Oh, no, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. But
it's one of my favorite Call of Duties.
That's a good.
That's a great Call of Duty.
It's a fine one.
Had a great survival mode. Special operations were great in that game.
I always forget about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The campaign was awesome.
Well,
don't ask me what happened in it, but it was awesome.
Not that awesome, huh? But either way, I've since then wanted the old days of Battlefield. Will I get it with this? Maybe.
No.
No say no. You don't know.
I can definitively say you will not get old days of Battlefield on.
No. I might. It's possible.
You're not going.
Listen, I'm not so blinded by nostalgia. I'm expecting a 1-to-1 ratio of how I felt then to how I felt now. I just want a Battlefield game I can jump in and have a lot of fun with just playing it. I didn't get it with 2042. I never tried Battlefield 1. I probably should have. So I'm really hoping that this turns out to be good because I want to jump back into Battlefield. But, they haven't had a good track record in my mind.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of faith in general. But this specific story soothed my fears of whatever the next Battlefield game is going to be like. Because Motive's working on it, big team. That sounds good to me.
I really think a lot of this depends on can they find a period of time to release this in which it's not a crowded market. Halo Infinite, Battlefield 2040, what is it?
2042.
2042. And Call of Duty, whatever Call of Duty was that year, or Modern Warfare, whatever. All released, in the fall of that year, and Battlefield failed really hard in comparison to the other two. Now, the other, I don't think any of them came out, with their best efforts, but Battlefield fails, or Battlefield loses every time.
And I'm pulling a blank. Is the new Call of Duty coming out this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, at least you're not going to be probably, because they're taking their new model where they seem like they're going to be spending more time on Call of Duties. At least with this one. Who knows what they'll do with the next one. But if they are keeping up with that trend...
Well, they only did that because they couldn't get Black Ops 6 ready for last year.
But if this turns out to actually be, substantially better than other Call of Duties, if they're smart, they'll realize maybe we shouldn't shell these out every single year.
Maybe.
And if that's the case, I think EA would benefit from that with their Battlefield game. I think as long as they don't have that contender, this kind of multiplayer game just kind of resonates with a large enough group of people. Compared to like live service games like Helldivers, as good as it is, or pick Overwatch, successor, whatever that might be.
Yeah,
it just seems like it's an easier game to jump into and not be such a try hard in.
I mean, I'm right now. I don't know why I'm feeling this way, Connor, but I want some type of live service shooter to be available right now. It feels like we haven't gotten a new one in a while. One that I can kind of sink my teeth into. So, part of me is kind of wondering if I should jump into Valorant on console. Part of me is, morbidly curious about Concord and how that's going to perform and so forth. And, I genuinely think I'm going to check Concord out. Just check it out just to see, just because I'm in the mood for something like that. Marvel Rivals, of course, around the bend at some point as well. So I'm, interested in that. Previews have been extremely positive on that one.
Yeah.
So, there's definitely a market to pick from right now. It's just a matter of when they come out and do they find their audiences and do they hit in the right ways? And of course, are the games good? Are the games fun? And are they ready to deliver on a content roadmap that keeps players engaged and interested? Which one will? I don't know, but I mean, one of these has to hit.
It'd be good if it did.
Right?
This is all nice and good, but we need to focus on the sad part of this story. You, like me, say it. You'd rather this be Bad Company 3.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're never getting that.
No, we're never getting that.
Why not? Didn't it do bad commercially?
I think it did fine, but I think regular Battlefield did so much better. And now the IP is long gone and forgotten. Bringing it back for what?
For us.
Yeah, but again, the thing about Bad Company is that it was also attached to a single player campaign that people cared about, and people don't care about that now. And I imagine that team is just so multiplayer centric now that it's just better to just focus on that.
Yeah.
I would rather this next Battlefield not ship with a single player campaign at all than try and put out another generic one that nobody remembers 3 months later.
I can hope, man.
Listen, I would like that too.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Bad Company 2, 1 and 2 a lot. But, the times are the times. And that type of game had a time, and that time is over.
And so it goes.
I'll have nostalgic for it, but, I'm sure if we went back to those games, we'd be like, oof, these are stiff.
I actually played 2 not that long ago, Still very fun.
I'm sure it's fun and functional, but I'm sure it does not compare to what we have today.
Certainly more than some.
Connor, did you know Black Ops 6 you can run in all 8 directions?
That's actually pretty cool.
It's fucking cool. I'm excited to see how it plays.
Yeah, and then I go and download 306 gigabytes of data.
Fucking shit. Yeah. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for your Two Penny Games cast. But don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. We are going to lead right into our review for Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree. So make sure you stick around for that. But until next time, have a great time. Remember to like, subscribe, and drop a comment about all the stories you heard today. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
I'm texting. Go away.
How's it going, guys? Welcome to this breakout episode of the Two Penny Games cast, or Two Penny Games review, where we're doing the Shadow of the Erdtree review. I am Phil. I'm your host for this lovely video here with the Shadow of the Erdtree lead reviewer, Connor Elliott. How you doing today?
Also from Soft Shill, and I'm doing good today. I was just before this playing Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree.
You don't say?
Yes, because I still haven't beaten it. Why?
Neither have I.
Yes. Well, in my case, it's because I'm at the final boss. Safe to say, it's very, very hard. Some might say too hard, weaklings. At the same time, though, I don't know where Phil is. We hadn't talked about that. Where are you in the DLC?
We'll get right into that as soon as I finish introing this lovely review. Of course, you can check us out here on, right now we're live on twitch.tv/TwoPennyGames, but this is also a video going on the back of you and Tavin doing the Two Penny Games cast episode, I believe, 205 this week?
207.
207. Oh shit!
Yes, it's gotten high.
Well, anyway, yeah, getting real close to that anniversary, that 4-year anniversary. I believe that's next week, if my math is correct.
Wait, it might be longer. I have Tavin in my ear telling me
50. It'd be 52, then 104, then 156, and then 208.
And I don't know if the numbers work out that way because I'm bad at math, but I guess I can just assume yes, it is.
As far as episode numbers go, that's mathematically correct. Yeah, but anyway, check out all of our links in the description below, and if you're coming off of the Two Penny Games cast, hope you liked it, hope you enjoyed it. Strap in for another roughly hour or so while we just kind of talk about Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree. To answer your question, Connor, I am, let's see, the furthest boss I've beaten was Renala.
Oh, okay. I think it's Rellana.
Rellana. That's
because Renala's
Renala's the one from the base game. Rellana is the okay. That's right. That's right.
They're
the
sisters.
dual wielding. She's got the blue sword and the red sword.
Yes, and so you did beat her, or you're at her?
I am sorry. I don't know if I said I beat her. I have not beaten her. Okay. That's where I am.
I just didn't hear you because I'm me. But that is a hard boss. Is it the hardest boss?
She is very difficult.
Yes. It is. Yes, not the hardest one. So good luck when you find out who is the hardest one.
Well, I already know who it is. That was the first thing that was spoiled for me. Like literally, 2 days into the DLC.
Damn.
Unfortunately. But we'll get into spoilers eventually. But for right now, you're safe.
Good.
But we'll make that clear distinction when we do start talking about spoilers. But Connor, how have you been liking Shadow of the Erdtree, my man?
Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is a masterpiece. I remember there was the previous comments from the director, Miyazaki, who was saying it's about the size of the first part of the base game, an area called Limgrave. And so it's going to be, I think the time was given 25 hours to beat the whole thing. And one of the first things the reviews talked about was how that was a lie. This is a game that I spent I'm still in the process of playing it, but I've so far spent 51 hours on the DLC alone. I take it slow, just like how I did in the base Elden Ring game, which is what this game is obviously working off of. It has everything that Elden Ring does, but is able to build on top of itself. One of the main ways this is done, aside from, of course, the new area and the new enemies, which is pretty much standard, is the new weapons. They added entirely new weapons that weren't in the original game, such as backhand blades for all those Dex users. All of these, of course, have their own unique moveset. The addition of light greatswords, version of which you can dual wield them, which are somewhere in between a regular straight sword, kind of using its speed with a bit more damage, but not as much damage as the greatsword, though it is getting the same amount of reach. You also have things like fisticuffs, claws in some cases, but really, if you're a true gamer, you'd go hand to hand, because that's untrue. That's me projecting. Anyway, point is, there's lots of different new weapons in this game, and they each feel unique, and that's not even touching on all of the other ones the game has to offer, based off of weapon types the original game has, but with their own unique skills. Some of them have their own unique, attack animations. All in all, it just adds so much more ways for you to take part in the combat, which I think in the base game of Elden Ring is already pretty great. I've always enjoyed the flow of combat in Souls games, and it seems like they almost get better with each and every single entry, and even that's viewable in this DLC. Another thing that had been in the news is that there was the magnum opus from FromSoft has yet to be made, and Shadow of the Erdtree just gets that next step closer to it. Every single boss feels like a hurdle to overcome, and when you're not having a wide array of bosses to go off of like you would in base Elden Ring, each one is really felt. It does kind of fall into the caveat of a lot of the bosses you get through exploring can be repeat ones of enemies you fought maybe in the base game, maybe in the DLC itself, which with as much stuff as they offer, I see at the end of the day as being justified due to the rewards that you usually get, which can be those weapons I was talking about earlier, or even simple things like armor sets, which, if you're a FromSoft fan like me, I just love collecting the armor sets in games. And this one has some pretty cool ones as well. Visually, the game looks amazing. It has a opening shot when you first exit out of your cave that you get teleported to, and it made me sit there and look at it for a couple of seconds. Past FromSoft games had the legitimate criticism thrown at them that it can be kind of, a lot of the same colors, a lot of muted dark browns and whatnot. Elden Ring squashed that, Shadow of the Erdtree even more. It just uses lighting in an ethereal way that sets it apart from all of the other areas that you go in base Elden Ring. And I keep bringing up base Elden Ring because it's pretty amazing to have something that was already, in my mind, a masterpiece, and tweak it in small ways, but in ways that just make it even better.
Real quick, just to kind of touch on like the visuals of this. Like that opening shot you were just talking about, it threw me right back into that first time I finished the intro to Ghost of Tsushima, and you're running through and you get all those flowers around you. That's exactly what it reminded me of.
Good.
Replace some of those flowers with like headstones, and it's a little more grim and dour, but in its own way, still beautiful. And then also, I wanted to, still on visuals here, I wanted to shout out I think it's the Azure Coast or something like that. It's like the really blue flower area.
Cerulean
Coast.
Yes.
Cerulean. Fucking gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. That's probably my favorite like area of this game to like just look at.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that happens multiple areas in the game, even though it all, takes place in the Shadow Realm, it has, similar to the original Elden Ring game, different areas that all look different. And it still keeps that tone of, since you're being in the Shadow Realm, it's kind of darker in the sense of it's always seeming like dusk, never really bright sunlight that you're seeing, except in one area of the game. An area that you hadn't gotten to yet, but it's a nice change of pace when you're seeing all of these more muted colors. Muted in the sense of it's not as like, that's a bad word to use because it still just looks like it uses color to the utmost in each and every single area you go to. Yeah. Visuals out of this world.
To talk about weapons, you mentioned the light greatsword. I'm using the heavy katana. I've been experimenting with that.
Yes, I forgot about that.
That one I'm having a really good time with. I think it's like the Dragon's Bane heavy katana or something like that.
Yeah.
That one's been really, really fun for me. It's got a really cool weapon art that I like a lot. I haven't really put that much time into trying the backhand blades like you were talking about. I think that I think Dex is my highest stat. Because I was a dual katana build in the base Elden Ring. I was my main thing was I was Dex. I have intelligence and arcane for my like dragon spells, like my dragon head spells and all that. But yeah, I would dual katana. I would use Rivers of Blood, so like I would use the Scarlet Rot Dragon Head and then put bleed on them too for like the double proc going on there. And it was I had a blast in the base game, and I'm having a blast in Shadow of the Erdtree. I'm like you. I would also call this DLC a masterpiece. This is just an incredible experience. Probably one of the best DLCs I've ever played. It's just insane, like just how vast the area is. It feels like it's even larger than Limgrave, to be honest.
Oh, it's larger.
Like,
yeah. Sorry to keep cutting you off.
No, go ahead. No, I was pretty much, I was like that. I was kind of throwing that to you. It feels like it's larger than Limgrave, you know, like.
I had seen some images of this, of the Shadow Realm over Limgrave, and that was one of the ways people were saying that Miyazaki was a liar, because it is clearly bigger. It is not the same size. In fact, it's more comparable to the map of Elden Ring than it is to just that one area. You know, seriously, it's amazing that even in just 2 years they were able to make that big of an area with this much stuff.
The inverse of like when people were mad at Game Freak about like not having all the Pokemon. Game Freak lied. This one's Miyazaki lied, but it's in a good way. Like,
oh yeah,
it's even larger.
Very few people, I think, would ever find themselves complaining about what was done here.
Absolutely.
To what you said earlier, I think it's the best FromSoft DLC, to be sure. Its best contender was the Old Hunters DLC back in Bloodborne days, and I'm biased because I think Elden Ring overall is a better game than Bloodborne, which is a pretty good feat in and of itself. But it topped it with the DLC being better than that Old Hunters one. As a whole, though, it also still is in the contender for the best DLC ever made. On critic sites, Metacritic specifically, I know it's the highest rated so far. Of course,
DLC
take that with a
in
grain of
general?
salt. Yeah. Last I checked, it could, of course, gotten some points deducted. Originally, I believe it was the Blood and Wine DLC. It was, because CD Projekt Red congratulated them after they had overcome that. Like I said, of course, though, could have changed. But
wow, that's crazy. For me, it's definitely standing up there, like easily top 5. I don't know if I would say top 3. But yeah, it's up there. I think I still have some like fondness for like Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep and like the Citadel DLC for Mass Effect. But I'd say this is probably like top 3 DLCs for me.
It'd be hard to not think.
There's so much there, and it's so content rich. And you were talking about the claw weapon you can get. I did want to quickly mention there's a little Wolverine Easter egg in like when you acquire those claws. I think is what's the name of the NPC?
Larger?
It's like lore gun or something like that. It's some play off of Logan, essentially. And it's a shirtless guy with like the Wolverine haircut. And he's got the claws, and he's running around.
Yeah, you had to tell me that.
And just find him in the forest.
Hey, it's fitting for Wolverine, I guess.
I just thought that was really funny.
It was. I wonder how many other references they added in this game. Probably not much, but
that was the only one I really got.
Yeah. I mean, pretty easy one. Wolverine, pretty crosses borders, so we can say. One of the main.
Go ahead. I'll let you finish that point, and then we're gonna cross over into spoilers and talk bosses, I think.
Yes, that'd be good in a second. The big, other than people praising it, the other big conversation about this was the difficulty. It is very hard. At least it's particularly hard at the beginning. Enemies can easily kill you in a couple of hits.
Just regular like Joe Schmo enemies can just fucking wreck you.
Bosses are hard, and like I'm not even going to contest that. They are incredibly hard. But going through the main game is what people were mainly saying was an incredibly hard experience. And it is, but it's not too hard. One of the interesting things that this game offers is a unique upgrade system where you can get up the amount of damage that you can do, getting these things called Shadow Tree fragments. You also can get the same thing for your horse for horse combat, though everyone obviously goes.
Like summons and stuff, right?
Yes, yeah. Oh, is it all for it? Is it also for your summons?
I believe it. I believe it's for. I believe the ashes help increase the damage for your summons and torrent, while the Shadow Tree fragments just boost you, and they like kind of.
Yeah.
I don't. Do they just boost your damage, or do they also help up your resistance?
Yeah, they do resistance as well. It just.
Okay.
I always found the most important thing about that was damage. Since
absolutely, I agree. I agree. I think hitting your opponent harder is better than tanking hits.
It certainly offsets all of the damage you're taking in turn. Though that kind of becomes less of a thing when you're dealing with the bosses, as you were saying. They just kick your ass, every which way to Sunday.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's hard not to talk about spoilers, since a lot of the meat of this game, when you're really in it, is talking about the bosses specifically, or things that happen in the main narrative. I just caught a light. That's how cool I am. But yeah, was there something? Yeah, it was a very good catch. I'm still holding it. Was there a thing in particular, without spoilers, that was interesting to you about this game? DLC?
Other than like what we were already talking about, I don't really see one. I think just like stumbling upon like that opening area and the Cerulean Cove, it evoked a similar feeling to whenever I got teleported to Caelid in the main game.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the sheer just that being in that area, but like a more positive way. Like it was more like, oh my god, I'm in hell now that I'm in Caelid. Whereas getting not teleported, but stumbling upon these other areas with all these nice bright colors and just the beauty, the beautiful like glowing flowers all over the ground is just like so like it's so peaceful.
It is.
There's something so just that's just beautiful about it.
And that's what the open world FromSoft games, the one we have, is really, really good at. Just exploration. Being able to go to just some random location. Maybe you see some interesting landmark on the map. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's still blank because you haven't picked it up yet. And you just have to go and look for things. And to give you a sense of how cool and explorative this game is, one of the final dungeons is the Shadow Keep. And while I'm going through there, I go off to some other, path away from the main one, thinking there's going to be some interesting item, maybe a cool enemy type that might drop something. Who knows? But I go there, and it leads to this giant bridge that goes to another part of the keep. Expecting to be still in the keep, I go to an elevator. I go up the elevator, and then all of a sudden, I'm in this place that's like the ancient kingdom of Rao, or ancient ruins of Rao, or something like that. And it's this. I kind of touched on it a couple minutes ago. It looks different from the rest of the areas in the game, and it's a whole new area. And it made me just go, okay, I guess I'm doing this now. Because I was, like I said, doing one of the main dungeons, and all of a sudden I'm in this new big area that seemingly came out of nowhere. I did not expect to be, to come across that, but like always, it was a nice treat. It just, that's a pretty, big example of the small thing compared to the small things you discover, whether it be weapons, NPCs, and their subsequent quest lines, which additionally, it feeds into the main narrative, and also it feeds into other ways I won't spoil, but the journeys that you go on with your NPC allies, because you're all going on the same mission, it develops in such a great way and culminates in a way that, touched my heartstrings. Not in the same way some other games are able to do so, like The Last of Us, because as much as I like FromSoft's writing and the characters within them, they aren't going to elicit the same emotional response as a traditional form of storytelling. And yet, when it came time to, engage with these characters in a specific way, it led to one of the best experiences of the DLC. And the DLC just one-ups itself pretty much every step of the way.
Yeah, it just gets more and more and more. That's very, very, very well said. It does one-up itself.
Not even just a matter of quantity, but quality as well.
Absolutely.
A lot of issues you find with games is that they, at some point, they start to falter. Like Resident Evil 4, it's very well regarded. near the end, you're kind of, okay, you're not going through the most interesting areas anymore.
That third act, yeah.
Yes, exactly. But Elden Ring is, even if it's just a DLC, never makes you feel that way. In fact, it elicited the same response when I was getting closer to the end, which was that I didn't want it to end. I was, part of me was like, Miyazaki, why didn't you put more in this DLC? My greedy side came out. It's not reasonable, but when a game just makes you want more, even after you play 50 hours of it, in a DLC, 50 hours of a DLC, it's a pretty impressive thing. On top of the fact that I had played hours and hours and hours of the base Elden Ring to get to the point where I can access this DLC, and, I never felt burnout. And some games easily could reach burnout by this point, and yet it always has that next bit of line to lay down to make you follow and find whatever is at the end of it.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and let's just start talking bosses.
Yes.
That first one that I ran into, that divine beast dancing lion.
Was that the first boss you fought in general?
That was the first one, yeah. So
that's what it was, yeah.
Not really a boss, but there's that big fire basket guy that was walking around.
Yeah,
but,
the furnace golems.
I wouldn't call it. I think that's just a giant enemy. I wouldn't call that a boss.
No, definitely not.
But yeah, the dance, as soon as I entered that arena and started fighting, I was like, oh my god, okay, that's what I'm in for.
Oh yeah,
I don't think I was fully prepared for that. And then it took me a few tries. I don't remember exactly how many because it was literally the day after the DLC came out. Which I think we're coming up on a month now, right?
Yeah. Well, we're a little bit ways away from a month, but close enough.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah, because June 21st, July 21st will be when we get to the month mark.
Oh my god, you're right, dude. I've got my fucking days all mixed up.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
that was the first one. What did you think of that one?
I fought that boss, and I was like, man, this one's hard. And little did I know, it's not the hardest. But visually, boss fight, the dancing lions, pretty amazing. Some people were, after the fact, finding out that it's a boss with, I don't know if you noticed it, it's two guys in an outfit, essentially.
Yeah.
People were surprised at that for some reason. It's kind of apparent that it's two guys
it's like one of those one of the Chinese New Year parade float things, essentially.
And then I think that's clearly what it's kind of basing itself off. It's called Divine Dancing Dragon, and it doesn't even look like a dragon. So I guess it kind of makes sense.
Dancing lion.
Dancing lion. It looks like a lion. You had mentioned before that you can fight the other boss that kind of took up a lot of the discourse when the game first came out.
Oh, you're talking about the Everjail Knight.
Yes, the Black Jail Knight, I believe.
Is it Black Jail? Okay, you're right. I think it is Black Jail.
Yeah, I think it might be. But a lot of people had trouble with that boss. How was your experience with it?
There was some trouble for sure. But that's whenever I really started to getting into. I started, instead of dual wielding, I started just two-handing the heavy katana, and that's really kind of where I started working, because I got a little more used to just using one hand, not one-handed, but two-handing one weapon rather than having two weapons. And so just getting used to that is really what kind of put me over the line on that boss. That I guess would you call that a mini boss or a
mini boss, side boss?
Side boss, yeah. A boss without a cutscene, essentially.
Yeah. Definitely not a main one. But it's interesting you say that, because a lot of the difficulty... I actually had some difficulty with it, but that was really because I was engaged in a all-or-nothing game with him. Since his build was basically the same as mine, I just didn't have the crossbow. And so it was basically just...
The fucking, the semi, basically automatic crossbow?
Yes, I did not have crazy. That. But... aside from that, I just had big sword and heavy armor with a lot of poise, and so it was really a matter of timing it to just get my attack in right before he did. So it really led to this effectively very brutish dance of a battle between us. Whereas his other people I saw having a lot of trouble with him was ones that weren't able to stagger him as easily, kind of possibly like your katanas. Your dual katanas. And so he would just kind of power through whatever attack they were going with and hit them. And that's how I saw a lot of people die. So it's actually good that you kind of seem to pick the best counter, which is the, two-handed type weapons that you can have access to. The Great Katana, by the way, I said I had forgotten about that weapon type. Really, really cool. Another example of, even though it's just a bigger katana, they added a whole new moveset. It's not just like the curved swords, curved great swords.
I really like the how like you get the big slash and then you get like a jab.
Yeah,
and then it's a cross slash. It's really, really cool.
It's good to have pierce. Honestly, pierce and regular like standard. I think it's called standard damage. Just makes for a good weapon. It's slashing is what you're doing, but I think they designate it as like no. It's slash. What am I saying? Never mind. Yeah, you're right.
I wasn't sure if I was getting too like D&D into it. You know?
No, you were. I wasn't getting too D&D enough. So
gotcha.
But you were talking about Rolana.
Rolana, yeah. So I still have not beaten the second main boss in this DLC, which is a little disappointing. But you know, it is what it is. The majority of my time with this DLC has been exploring, at least since I like got destroyed by Bale the Dread, which is a boss we'll talk about later. Because I actually ran into that one. I think that was the third or fourth like boss enemy I ran into, because like there's just regular enemies that show up with like big health bars on the bottom of your screen. Like I think I ran into a like a demi-human queen, which you know like it was super easy fight, but for whatever reason it gave it like the boss like health bar at the bottom of the screen for some reason.
Yeah, and that's what they did in the base Elden Ring game. You would just fight enemies that, you know, with the game, the size of it, I see it as kind of a way to get more runes to level up and, you know, gain access to more of the weapons and spells and whatnot. So they just kind of give you that opportunity to fight a harder enemy than usual that can give you some nice little bonus points. You say demi-human queen. There's a demi-human swordsman. Very cool boss fight.
Also, that one is a cool boss fight. I think that was the third one that I ran into in that cave area.
Yes. Yeah, one of the jails.
That was the third one that I ran into. And then I on the way to fighting this demi-human queen, I ran into another one that was just in the wild. For whatever reason. It didn't seem as difficult as the first one though.
He wasn't named. He didn't have a name.
He was not named. He did not have a name.
But
he was just chilling.
Rolana, have you gotten to the second phase of Rolana?
No.
Ah, damn. See,
he's just fucking stomping me into the dirt.
It's so crazy that you fought Bale before her, or you tried Bale before?
I tried Bale. I have not beaten Bale.
Okay,
I ran into Bale.
Yeah.
And I fought a couple of dragons, but like, you know, just because they have I guess technically like boss, like I don't know what you consider a boss, because like are we considering anything with like a health bar at the bottom a boss?
Yeah, that's what's designated.
Okay, so yeah, then I've beaten there's been a couple dragons that I've beaten like that. There's been the dancing lion, the black jail knight, and then the demi-human swordsman, and then the demi-human queen.
Ah, yeah.
So I guess like I think I'm like 5 or 6 bosses I've beaten. But yeah, Bale immediately fucking the way he just fucking charges you as soon as you walk in, it threw me off. I was like, dude, I couldn't even summon my mimic tier. What the fuck?
And you know,
it's tough.
And you said he rushes you right away. It's especially annoying when you're trying to summon the NPC that you can get from his quest line into that arena. All else, I'm a guy who I only summon for 2 reasons. One, if it's a gank boss fight, you know, I'm gonna go to your level.
Like the OG Radon, right? Like
yes. Yes, exactly. But the other instances where I do that is when there's a character quest that benefits the game benefits in general from you having him along with the fight. Egon, more than anybody else, I beg you to go do that part of the fight with him there. He takes it from a really, really cool, you know, fun boss fight to one of the most memorable ones in not only Elden Ring but in FromSoft history.
Yeah, you were telling me about this because I didn't realize that you could summon him from inside the arena.
Yeah.
Because like I was looking for something to summon him from outside. That's how they usually do it, where like you get like the summon, like you know when someone leaves a note in the game. It'll be like that little 3 like slashes on the ground.
Yeah.
But it's gold for when you can summon someone. I was expecting something like that, but I was like, okay. And so I dug in the menu because I remember he gave me a finger. So I was like, oh, maybe I've summoned him this way through the menu in the inventory. Still wasn't there. And so, yeah, I never would have thought that he was inside of the boss arena.
It was the exact same case for me. The only difference is at the end of that, I was like, I'm just going to look it up. And that's how I found out.
So you're a coward, I see.
Yeah, I am, in that case. Very weird to do. But, like I said, that summon is worth it. I won't say anything beyond the fact that this is Elden Ring's version of Captain Ahab.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but...
I like it.
Oh, yes, it's very cool. Beyond that, though, the bosses that you have yet to fight, I don't know how much you know about them.
I did. I pulled up a list of like the main bosses for Shadow of the Erdtree. We've got Divine Dancing Lion, Rolanda the Twin Moon Knight, the Putrescent Knight.
Yes. Is that a... oh, yeah, I guess.
Is that the one that rides the boar?
No. So the Putrescent Knight is something that you find in an area in the Cerulean Coast. A little, do you remember... You would find them by getting to a place called the Fissure. Did you ever find the Fissure?
Oh, okay. So I did find the Fissure, but it was blocked off.
Yes, that will change later on. Just go through the game normally. He's in that area. Very an annoying boss fight. The one you're thinking of, Commander Gaius, I was playing that boss. Yes, I was playing that boss. That's actually one of the bigger criticisms I can have of this game, because he's not a good boss. A lot of people are having trouble with him. They might say it's because it's difficult, but this is where you really see the issue with some of the systems that can be improved upon, which is why it's one of the other reasons why I'm looking so forward to the next FromSoft game. Because it's one that really, it's best fought on horseback. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, a lot of bosses, when you fight them on horseback, is a matter of just doing hit and runs against them. This one isn't really any different. But the boss seems to require more from you to engage with it more. But the limited moveset of the horse, of the Torrent, just makes the boss fight feel very clunky. The fact that you're having to fight on your horse and manage 2 life bars, your own and the horse, really messes up the pacing of the boss fight. And once again, with the way he operates, it makes it seem like they were supposed to have more depth in the horse combat to have the kind of boss that he was. And without that depth, he just came across as extremely annoying, getting hit by things that in some cases I was like, I can't dodge that. I just get hit by it, which is always a feels bad moment, especially with how often it happened with a lot of his attacks. It just didn't work with what Elden Ring is and at its current form, and as FromSoft games are at their current form. So even though it's nice to know that they'll probably improve upon that in subsequent titles, whatever those might be, it really was felt in that boss fight, and I'm happy to say that after I beat it, other people were having a lot of problems with it, so I didn't feel like I was just sucking. I'm vindicated.
Right before Commander Gaius, you've got Mesmer the Impaler.
I fought them out of order.
Did you?
I did. Mesmer, sick-ass boss fight, and also, I would have to say, in terms of the main bosses, the easiest. I don't know if that's just me being an outlier or what, but, I was surprised at that because he's the guy who you were building up to. And
I haven't heard that much like as far as it being like super hard from Mesmer. I did also before the DLC came out, I do remember hearing that Mesmer is the guy that like impelled all the giants in like the fire giant area in the original in the base game.
Very possible, never confirmed. Which
not confirmed? I thought that was the case.
It might be, but I might have just missed something in that regard. Oh, okay. Since you mentioned that now, FromSoft games are obviously known for lore. This one, in terms of like a story, Elden Ring has done more than past FromSoft games. This DLC, I think, even more so. But it contextualizes some things from the main game, particularly regarding Marika. There's a whole hidden area. You might have to look it up. It's locked behind a emote that you have to do in front of a statue, and it's not a big area it leads to. But
I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
in the base game, right?
No, in the main. Well, there is an emote that you do to a statue for lore purposes, but in this case, it's something that gets you to a new area, a small area, but an area.
In the DLC or in the
DLC?
Game?
In the DLC, related to an area. In the original, based off just like story stuff.
Gotcha. I thought you were talking about the spell of like transfiguration or something like that you had to do in front of that statue to confirm that Marika is Radigan.
Yes, it's based off that same principle. It's just like I said, it does an area instead of a lore bit.
Gotcha.
And it similar to the Cerulean Coast, just kind of makes you sit there and like.
Is it literally an emote or is it like one of those like talking things?
Oh no, it's an emote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, and everyone else, because it is like I had to look it up. I would have put 2 and 2 together if I had found the emote, but the problem is it's so out of the way that it's easy to miss. It's the "Oh Mother" emote. Once again, it makes total sense within the confines of where you're supposed to do it because they leave a little message that has that phrase in it. But it's really an issue of finding the emote in the first place.
I think I found that message. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's before the Commander Gaius fight. For all of those that don't want to waste time looking it up. And I point all this out because the moment that it leads to is so good, and it's paired with music that just hits. It really creates a great sense of atmosphere, which I hope they do even more so in the future.
I've definitely found a few of those like dev messages, like where it's actually like an actual like hint to something, not like somebody just trolling like try finger butthole or whatever.
No, not like that.
The one that's more recent for this DLC is like I'm going home into Edge or something like that.
Oh yeah, like wow, it's like I can't take. I want to go home and Edge. That's how it goes.
Exactly.
Then Edge. Or something like that.
Yeah. Then we got after Commander Gaius, you got the Shadow Tree avatar,
and
which I assume is just like the avatars from the base game.
I will say
instead of Ur Tree avatar, it's a Shadow Tree avatar.
In terms of name, yeah. In terms of the boss itself, no. In fact, I it's not one that's talked about because it doesn't have. It hasn't been talked about up until this point, but now that some time has passed, I've started to see people say how that's one of the best bosses in the DLC because it's like a classic FromSoft fight. And in fact, I take it back. It's the easiest boss. No, it's not the easiest boss. They're comparable to Mesmer in my eyes, but it's a nice classic like feeling FromSoft boss. It doesn't do any cheap bullshit stuff. There's never a point where you're like, that's dumb. I was just like, yep, I got. Nothing to blame but myself. Very cool boss fight in that case. Go to the next one because I think I know what it is.
Yeah. Meter, Mother of Fingers.
Oh, it goes to that one next.
That's what it says.
That's the thing about Elden Ring's DLC is that you just find stuff, but in unconventional ways. It's all connected to a quest. It's a lot more easy to understand. A guy gives you an item, says to go to these types of locations. You go to them. You understand what to do pretty quickly. But you do that, and it leads to that fight. It's a nice fight. It's more interesting for lore reasons, but other than that, it's not one that really sticks in your mind all that much.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
After that, we've got Romina, Saint of the Bud.
Cool boss fight. Nice boss fight. Not one of the keys.
This is one that I don't think I've seen.
No. Yeah, I'm interested for you to see what you think of these boss fights because, all of them are good. Not a single one is bad. Well, that's not true. Commander Gaius is not good just because of the systems themselves, but pretty good all in all with how many bosses you have. You haven't even named all of them. There's 2 other ones of the main bosses.
There's
3.
There's Midra, Lord of Frenzy Flame.
Have you seen? Wait, stop. Have you read past that?
I know who the final boss is.
Do you know the second to final boss?
The second to final boss?
Yeah.
Don't do it. Bale the Dread.
Oh, shit. Don't look any further than that. Just do yourself a favor. Viewers, even though this is the spoiler part, do yourself a favor. Don't look that up. That's probably one of the best fights in the DLC. I'll go through the... you know what? Just to put a pause on bosses for now, because I don't want to have the chance of you spoiling that, because it's such a cool boss fight that... that aside, that there's another boss that's connected to an area that is hidden behind an illusionary wall. And it's another one of those moments where you just have the game open up to you. And you go, when is this going to end? Not in a bad way, but in a way where you're kind of hoping there's more beyond what you're already, secretly finding out about. And it's an area that has a unique feature of where it's an enemy you can't fight. And so you have to do a little bit of stealth. not particularly hard stealth, but it's nice that they're trying to experiment with new things rather than just going through the enemy and using the skills that you've gained throughout the game and your sorceries and whatnot to take out whatever enemies being thrown your way. It once again makes me interested to see what Elden Ring and what FromSoft is going to do with future games. It's kind of weird. I'll go back to the cons because it seems like some good things were established with Sekiro that weren't capitalized off of in Elden Ring. Particularly things like the jump. A lot of attacks that seemingly should be responded with a jump to kind of create that extra level of gameplay. It doesn't actually add it. You can jump, you'll still get hit by some attacks, and unfortunately, some bosses, like the final boss, bosses like, to a lesser degree, the one that you find in the area that I'm referring to, I'll say the name, it's called the Abyssal Woods. It doesn't make much use of movement, as much as it should, based off the fact that they had already experimented with that stuff in Sekiro, and I'm hoping, once again, those things are improved in subsequent games. A lot of the issues I have with Elden Ring's DLC are really just things that can be expounded upon later down the line. So rather than really being a big issue, it's more making me excited for the future. This DLC is just fantastic.
It's really good. I guess that's a good place to go ahead and start wrapping it up. Do you have anything else you want to say, Connor?
No, I think I've covered my bases for now, at least.
Well, all right. Of course, make sure to drop in the comments and let us know what you thought about this Elden Ring DLC if you've been playing it. A lot of people have been playing it, so it's kind of crazy. I think this is definitely one of the biggest releases of this year, considering how huge Elden Ring was when it came out 2 years ago. I know people have just been clamoring and chomping at the bit for this DLC. So I want to say, I don't remember ever seeing any numbers for percentages of the base game players converting to the DLC and continuing on that way, but I imagine it's pretty high.
The whole thing that was talked about beforehand was that they didn't get to Mog, the boss that you have to, the final boss, the furthest boss you have to beat to access the DLC. At the time on Steam, only 30% of players had gotten to that point. So not a lot, not as much as you would think.
Wow, yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I know. You'd think.
What's weird is you know how in the base game you fight Mog in the Blood Palace, right? The Mogwin Palace. I fought that version of Mog before the one that's under the king. What is it called? What's it called?
The sewers. The Kingdom sewers.
Something like that. Yeah.
Cisterns. But same way. I fought that boss beforehand, and I was like, oh, that was weird. Not knowing he was coming down the line.
Some aspects of the one in the sewers was actually harder than the main, the actual boss.
I agree. It was the space, I think, for me. It just was hard to maneuver.
How enclosed you were.
Yeah, and he has such large sweeping attacks, and his blood attacks are very strange. They have weird hitboxes, so it's hard to deal with. Did you have more problems with him than final version?
In some ways,
ways, okay.
But I think I don't remember exactly. It's been so long, since I've played that boss for the first time that I couldn't tell you exactly how many tries it took, but it was probably over 10 for me to meet the original one, the one in Mogwin Palace. I don't remember. I think it was probably within 5, the one under the in the sewers there.
I fought more than that.
But anyway, yeah, right. But anyway, I've fought some of these bosses in the DLC more time. I've attempted them more times than some of the bosses in the original.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
On a ratio perspective, they're harder in general.
They're FromSoft went off the shits when designing these bosses for sure.
They do with their DLCs.
But let us know what if you're breezing through it, let us know. If you're having trouble, let us know, and let us know what your favorite boss is in the comments as well. Connor, thank you so much for your insight and your FromSoft knowledge on this review. And let's go ahead and say goodbye.
Goodbye, and have a nice day.